one too many times on the building on the left, probably it will be better to leave it quite loose and from the first layer and so on. It's also really important to have a clear difference between light and shadow. Shadow is nice, it's powerful, but there is not a clear difference between the light and the shadow, because we have gone several times on top of the wash of the shadow, and then we don't see this beautiful play of light between light and shadow. I don't know if you understand what I mean. Please let me know. And yeah, drawing and perspective could also be a little bit improved. Remember that you should always reach the vanishing point, that is at the height of the figure. So more or less all the figures should be at the same height, and the upper part should go a little bit more down, okay? Because we should reach the vanishing point, as I am saying, so the upper perspective line should be a little bit more steeper, okay? About what you did well, so color choosing is quite good. Strength of washes as well, and boldness and powerfulness of your brush strokes as well. Let's review our second work of the day. This is Diane. Diane is telling us, here are my results for today. Best Diane. Well done, Diane. Thank you for sharing your work with us. Let's support all Diane. So well done, Diane. You can also show her, your love and support on the chat. So about your work, I feel like maybe shadows and contrast could be a little bit stronger, so we could have this sense of light versus shadow. I also have the impression that it looks a little bit weird. I could say that where the shadows stopped, we don't have the sense that the street is continuing. You know what I mean? Because there is like a cut there. The shadow is cutting, and then we don't have the impression that we have this floor, or we have the street that is going through the horizon. We should extend somehow a little bit more the street, and do not cut it where the shadow ends. About the colors, I think that we should be using a little bit warmer browns or so for the building on the shadow on the right. The shadow on the ground is okay, that it's a bit cooler, but it should be a little bit stronger and more connected to the other one. And for the buildings on the back, I don't know if this yellow ochre, but looks a little bit pale for me. I would like it a little bit warmer, maybe some coming orange, some burnt sienna on the washes and so on. And then, yeah, we have to look into drawing, into proportions, and as I said, really having the idea that this street is continuing, and we have a little bit more depth then, okay? Then there's the vegetation, the trees, should be done a little bit more wet, so we don't see these cuts between light and shadow. Third one, so this is Filipa. Filipa is telling us, thank you for your comments and for another interesting session. It takes me back to 1989 when I painted and sketched my way around Spain with my aunt, who was 40 years older than me. Fabulous fun. Oh, nice. So you were visiting Spain and sketching and so on. Nice trip then. Actually, I was born in 1989. So it's an important year for me, of course. So let's support Filipa on the chat as well. And about Filipa, I liked about your work, the contrast between light and shadow is quite nice. The boldness of your strikes and brush strokes is also quite good. And about your watercolor technique, I find it pretty nice. Maybe the building on the left has got a little bit too much shadow. It should be a little bit paler if you wanted to understand it as a light. And then this is a mistake that is quite common. The perspective lines under the lower ones. Let me explain it to you on an easier way. Okay, so the first thing that you should always do is find the horizontal line, that's the height of the viewer, and the vanishing point. That's where all perspective lines should flow, should converge. What is happening here? If we take the lower perspective lines, that are dividing buildings on the floor, and we take some of them, the vanishing point, that should end on the vanishing point, right? This gives us a really high vanishing point. So we have the impression that we're looking at the scene from above. We're not really at the street level as we should. We are looking at the scene from above. And that's quite a mistake because we want to feel this street mood and to be at the height of the passers-by, of the people who's walking around, right? Apart from that, I think it's quite okay. Maybe also perspective lines from above and balconies and windows and so on should be much deeper as well, because they should be meeting the vanishing point that is a little bit lower than the half of the format. The horizontal line is a bit lower than the half of the format as well. So I hope I make myself understandable. My English is a bit rusty lately, but I hope I do my best. So that's it. Thank you for your works. There are a lot more of them, but we don't have time to review all of them. But you did a nice job, all of you. So, any questions about perspective, composition, and so on? Remember, you always have to put first the horizontal line to know the height of the vanishing point, and then everything has to converge there. Okay. The most important thing in a cityscape is to have a correct drawing, and then we can start painting, of course. Okay. But if we don't have a correct drawing, the painting won't look good. It doesn't matter how good your technique is. So let's paint Domenech stairs in Girona. This downhill stairs, the downhill slope that we have in Girona. And remember, you can find all the sketches and references for each day in your personal account in the materials lesson. You can also grab them using the buttons right below this video. Okay. So let's get ready to paint. Please, if you are following me, drop some pluses on the chat. I'll wait for 10-15 seconds, 20, and we'll be able to start. Okay, so let's start then. I'm gonna put the video on and we're gonna start the painting process. Okay, so we are starting our scene. Domenech stairs of Girona. Again, the reference picture is not the best, but it's true that the lighting is the same as the one that we did. What is happening is that when we are painting, we always tend to accentuate, tend to contrast a little bit more or to make it a little bit more dramatic because the light is an important thing when we paint and we want to really make sure that it's working. Okay. So I'm gonna start by showing you the colors that we're gonna use. So I have two small sheets of paper for the color scheme that we are going to use. Maybe I'm saying something, but I don't think it's something really important, but now we'll get to it. Okay, so when we start grabbing the colors, I'm pre-wetting my palette a little bit. It's called a Perla number 14, but okay, now we are just now putting down the color that we're gonna use. So you already know the colors, right? You can tell me in the chat. Well, I tell you, but you can also guess. So on the right first I put burnt raw amber, sorry, or greenish amber from Rembrandt, and a little bit of yellow ochre. Okay, it's always the same warm palette. A little bit now of transparent orange, this orangish color that we are combining with the rest, and some ultramarine blue, making these beautiful grays. Actually, it depends on the ochre yellow, of course, as they are saying on the chat. Depends on the subject I'm painting. Sometimes when I like to paint white architecture, I use more ultramarine blue and burnt sienna because it suits better what we are doing. But in this case, we're using more ultramarine blue, a little bit of bandit brown as well to make this nice grays, and also bandit brown with when we combine it with transparent orange also gives us some reddish grays, quite beautiful. And now I'm saying something like I'm trying to water a little bit yellow ochre and tell you that the same color, depending on the amount of pigment that we use, can give us many different colors indeed. So this will be our palette. Instead of showing every small pigment separately, I like to combine them and to see how they interact within each other. It's like I don't know, a composition of colors, right? You could also see the bright yellow from Holbein, this opaque color. Probably we could have used it as well on the first layers, but do not make it too dense because it's an opaque color in the beginning, where you're using it for highlights in the end, okay? Okay, so we are still using our St. Cuthbert's Mill Saunders Waterfall 300 gram per square meter rough paper, our mechanical pencil HB of 2 millimeters, and we're gonna start in a few moments with the preliminary drawing. Okay, so before we start, we have to remember that this is a downhill composition. So this does mean that we are looking from a higher point of view to the scene that is lower. This means that the horizon, the vanishing point and the horizon are going to be higher. It's a high composition. That's why I'm drawing the horizon line a little bit higher than the middle of the format that is marked with this dot. And the vanishing point, as you see, every perspective line flows into the right of the paper. So about 1/3 of the composition of the length of the format, we have the vanishing point on the right. Do you understand this? Now I'm starting to detail these stairs and these features that we have during the stairs. And of course, I mean, careful with this. Every horizontal line needs to flow into the vanishing point, but this doesn't mean that the staircase has also to correspond with the vanishing point. Of course, the staircase is steep. It's a hill. So it's got its own vanishing point somehow. It's only the windows, doors, and balconies that are flowing into the vanishing point. Okay, the staircase, it's something different. I should look a little bit on how it works, and we'll get to it. I didn't remember. So here, instead of using the whole 40 times 30 centimeters format, because I wanted the composition to be a bit more landscape, I am putting some more, what's the name? Yeah, tape, right? A little bit more tape to make it more landscape. Masking tape. Didn't remember the word. So, okay, we are detailing the main building on the left. Actually, the whole scene, almost the whole scene, is under shadow. It's a backlighting scene. It's only the building on the right, small proportion of the work that is illuminated. Okay, so now I'm drawing some details inside, some cafes, some tables. Actually, the tables are white. Maybe they got some, yeah, these protections that we put on top of the tables to eat. Some, oh, my English is a bit rusty today. Mantle as well. Tablecloth. So these white tablecloths are gonna pop out, so we need to leave them whiter later, okay? The other white part of the painting is the balconies on the right. This protections of the curtains, right? Outer curtains that we have here. So the buildings on the right also have to flow into the vanishing point. Tablecloths. Okay, thank you. Tablecloth and tablecloth. Yeah, that's some small tables over there. I'm more used to the words that we use for watercolor, but tablecloth is not inside my common language. Okay, some figures as well, some small people wandering around. They are dark because it's a backlighting scene, so the sun is hitting our eyes, and that's why we see them darker as well. Then the street is going a little bit to the right, so we have kind of a curve in the background, and somehow we finish the scene. Balconies and so on, try to make them correspond vertically one another. Okay, we are erasing some of the marks that we don't need. Some figures and tables and so on. Okay, I think the preliminary draw is ready, and I'm gonna stop here for a few seconds and ask you if you have any questions about the perspective and the drawing. Everything good? Put a plus and we'll continue. Are you painting with me? Painting along or not? Maybe it's too fast. The drawing is too fast for you, right? Well, I think you can catch up during the first layers and so on. Okay, so if you're right, if you're okay, let's continue with our first layer. Everything good? Did you understand the thing about the high perspective, the high vanishing point, and we're looking from above? So actually the street, when we reach the lower part of the slope, the street underneath should flow into the vanishing point. Why? Because it's horizontal. Every horizontal element, every horizontal line should go into the vanishing point. But not the staircase actually, because the staircase is steeper. Okay. Well, the platforms, yes. If we have different platforms, look at my telephone. All right, if we have a platform of the staircase, a higher one, and then we have small slopes in between them. The part of the slope is not flowing into the vanishing point, but the platforms of the staircase are. Okay, so they should refer to the vanishing point because it's a horizontal surface. Okay. It would be good when we have a pause to leave the painting showing clearly with our hand or arm in the shot. Do you explain things like perspective in the course more in detail? Yeah, probably. Yeah, I always start, with the horizontal line, with the composition, with the vanishing point, and then we start referring every point, every horizontal line to this, and then we start dividing vertically, horizontally. But yes, probably in the course there is a little bit more of explanation. Okay, let's continue then with our first layer. We are pre-wetting the surface of our painting a little bit and the palette as well. And maybe is it possible to make the reference picture a little bit smaller or maybe put it to the right, I don't know. So you can see the mixes. Well, we are mixing ultramarine blue. I'm also grabbing a little bit of cobalt blue, I guess. Mainly, I think we're going to use ultramarine blue. Cobalt blue is not until the next lesson when we're going to use it. Yeah, so the sky, what happens when we have a backlighting scene like this? Normally the sky is darker above and then it starts being lighter. That's because the sun is somewhere there, the lower part, and it makes the sky lighter. Now I'm fastly mixing warm colors, burnt sienna, greenish amber, and so on. Do not take right now yellow ochre because yellow ochre is going to mix with the blue and it's going to end up with horrible greens that is not doesn't suit well architecture, right? I am already putting down the big wash with our Da Vinci Cosmotop number 16 on the right part of the paper to start painting these buildings. We are already leaving out some of the whites because there are these beautiful kind of curtains on the facades that need to be respected. And now we're going really hard, not hard, but kind of powerful, still transparent but not a really watery wash. A little bit more of pigment with yellow ochre covering the right part of the painting. And now we are mixing again with tamarind blue, burnt sienna, and a little bit of banded brown because we need to connect all this wash with the floor. So the floor has to be done in one go, from side to side, quite transparent. But one thing is that it's transparent, and another thing is that it's too watery. I like the first layer that's under painting to have some strength, because then it's gonna show up in the most part of the painting, right? So now we have to be a little bit more careful because we need to leave out these tablecloths of the terraces, the tables, and so on. Some of the figures that are catching some light. So we're gonna leave this. That is the center of attention of the scene. So we need to keep some whites out, leave some detail. So now for the back, wet on wet, I am mixing some transparent orange with burnt sienna or tamarind blue, more transparent orange, yellow ochre, and so on. Now we are creating the back. Everything is mixing, everything is flowing around. Maybe probably from the left part of the palette, I'm grabbing also a little bit of, you see now I'm grabbing it, yeah, I'm grabbing a little bit of coming red light, but just a little bit. And the color is actually a little bit dirty, but it's just to give it this punch of red to the architecture. I'm trying to leave some whites out as well. There is a lot of water involved. Sometimes watercolor is a disaster in the beginning, but yeah, you need it to be a disaster because the first wash needs to be something really uncontrolled. So don't be afraid of uncontrolling your watercolor on the first stages, and later on we're gonna have time, we're gonna have room, space on the second layer to put down some shadows and control the painting a little bit more. Okay, there's too much water now, we need to dry a little bit, but I guess that now's the time to start putting down some medium tones. Now all the light tones are brown. We need to put some medium tones, reinforcing perspective lines, lower parts of buildings, rooftops, inside of windows, and so on. Okay, that's what we're doing now with our Skoda Perla number 8. So we are reinforcing the some of the main features of the right building. You see, when we put this dark really close to this white popping out, it's when the balcony really comes to life. Doing the same now with the rest. It's already a little bit dry, the part on the right, so kind of dry brushing a little bit, but because there's still a little bit of humidity, it's mixing with the previous wash, and it looks nice. Now we're trying to divide these terraces that the staircase got, these different terraces, but don't worry because the main contrast is gonna come later. Just detailing a little bit, moving the pigment around. You know, sometimes I touch, or we tend to touch our watercolor too much. This means that, normally the watercolor is gonna go down, and the tone, the pigment is gonna come down a little bit. But we don't like it when we see it wet, so we start touching it. And it will have looked good if we just left it. Yeah, we need to trust the watercolor a bit more sometimes, leave it do what it does. Because if we start touching it, then we make it dirty. Yeah? because I think that sometimes we want the watercolor to look good from the beginning, and it doesn't work like this. On the first washes, it's not going to look as a final watercolor, and on the other hand, tones have to go down, have to install into the paper, and so on. Okay, so now I'm doing a mark on the back with a little bit of transparent orange and camera light, Bandic brown as well, for some of the windows that we're gonna do wet in wet. Okay, so yeah, I guess we are reaching the final stage of this first wash. Let me look for a important thing. Okay, still 6 minutes more to go with this first wash, and then we make a little bit stop. So now I'm grabbing my 20 millimeters soft aqua from Raphael brush. Remember, these square brushes were quite nice for architecture. I use it vertically and horizontally for putting some details into the painting. By just using the whole brush and leave it on top. Okay. Now the small brush is giving us detailing a little bit more the slope, and I'm gonna use my credit card as well. Don't use it too early. Maybe it's a little bit early, but by using this, we are getting some highlights back. Some whites that we have lost, we are getting them back. Okay, we'll continue with the Skoda Perla, Van Dyck Brown and Ultramarine Blue, and we are reinforcing some wet on wet lines, perspective lines and divisions for the different stages of the staircase, some of the balconies and so on. But don't get too fussy about details right now. It's not the stage to do this. So probably it's better to leave it like this for now. Maybe a little bit with the rooftops, with a combination of camel orange and greenish amber. We are reinforcing some of the rooftops with a small brush. And soon is going to be the time of putting down the shadows. Okay, so next to the whites that we scratch it out, we are putting some of the lights. Of the dark, sorry. Scratch it out some lights, and we're putting some darks next to them. Using our fingers to put together. Now I'm even pouring some pigment on top for making some textures on the foreground. Remember that texture should only be used in the foreground, because in the background it's too far away and you can't see textures anymore. Okay, so now it's dry. Now it's dry. Yeah, colors have faded out a little bit. We are pre-wetting our palette again, and we had already 2 minutes to go, but when I want to make a pause right now, and I want to ask you if you have any questions on this first stage. So remember, first layer is putting light and medium tones in, wet on wet, and making all this underpainting work. For me, when I started watercolor in the beginning, the second layer was much more important, because it's where you see all the picture, all the light and the shadows. But I have discovered through time painting that the first layer is even much more important. Why? because let me tell you something. If you put a shadow on top of a really watery, of a really, I don't know, of a really pale wash and watercolor, then you only see the shadows. You don't see a rich painting with an underpainting that really brings attention. So all the color is put on the first layer, and the shadows are then complementing the work. But you need to have a nice underpainting full of variety, full of different brush strokes, wet on wet, probably most part of it. Some dry brushing could be used as we have done, but mainly wet on wet technique and different tones and colors. And on top is when we are putting all the shadows, and it's when the watercolors come to life. But this underpainting is quite important, as I told you. Okay. So somebody's asking, Margot is asking, how often can you re-wet the paper? I don't re-wet the paper a lot. I just spray the brush on top a little bit, so the pigment and the water flows a little bit more. But I guess you can pre-wet the the painting as many times as you like. The only thing is that if you pre-wet it too much and you start applying layers and layers and layers, I guess that your painting is gonna end up looking really, really muddy. If you want it to look vibrant and alive, it's always better to use 2-3 washes at the most, not more. That's why I use it in one. I do the first layer in one go for light and medium tones, and then I use the second wash. Okay, so we're gonna stop now for our small break, and we're gonna continue a little bit later with the rest of the painting. We still have the second layer and the details to go on. Can we switch on the presentation? Okay, so on our first day already, our second layer, putting all these nice shadows into our painting, and it will look like something different and really nice. Okay, so yeah, I am already mixing transparent orange and ultramarine blue for making these beautiful shadows and leaving some of the first wash appearing. As I told you, it's really important to not cover the first wash completely. Always let it come out, because it's beautiful small places where we let the first layer appear gives an extra light and a special mood to our watercolor. So less tone. Now I'm using a little bit more of blue because it's the backlight, it's the back part of the scene, a little bit more of blue in the mix, and we are creating the background. This building that comes towards us. I know that in the reference picture is not as stark as I am doing it, but I wanted to enhance a little bit the contrast. You love the Manhattan scene because you're from New York City. Nice. I would like to go, but I haven't been there. But if I go, I'm sure I will make thousands of pictures. I'll be painting for, I don't know, a couple of years just in New York, of course. Okay, now we're going a little bit dense. Remember that the lower part of the washes that is contrasting against the floor, I always make them a little bit darker, because then we can have this beautiful contrast against the light. And always also the lowest part of the buildings are always a little bit darker. So now we are blocking these two, it's like a, like a kind of an entrance, with this detailing, but make really sure that you leave this small stripe of light. Okay, now I'm without painting with our Skoda Perla number 14, but leaving out this first wash, this small stripe of the first wash is really important because this upper part of this kind of balcony, you could say, yeah, it's on the light. That's why it should be inside this beautiful light. I also leaving out some of the first washes is important because some of them could be the reflections on the window. You know, on this facade on the left, I'm leaving out the first wash. So it's abstract shapes, but our eye recognizes it as windows or as different elements. Okay, so now we have gone back to the right part of our painting. I'm mixing a more bluish wash because it's more in the back, so it's a bit cooler. And we are connecting both sides of the image. That's really important. It is true that the most right part of the image is under the satellite. That is why we don't really have to go and cover it. And we're leaving it to come a bit later and put some shadows under the balconies. But now I'm taking my 20 millimeters soft aqua Raphael brush, square brush, and I'm trying to go on top of it. Sometimes I use it when I don't want to put too much dark pigment, but only to glaze a little bit. Also pouring a little bit of water, making abstract shapes and having fun. That's the point. So right now you can't see anything that we did below. So you will be asking, why did we paint all these balconies underneath if they are not showing up anymore? Well, when it dries, it will appear again because watercolor is transparent. Now I'm reinforcing with probably Van Dyck Brown and ultramarine blue, darker and denser pigment. I'm reinforcing the lower part of the building so it really contrasts against, and also some of the different levels, horizontal levels. I'm putting my format a little bit more steeper, more vertically, and using my water sprayer too. Everybody following well. Some people having connection problems. I think my internet is quite good, but it could be anything. We are reinforcing the back of the picture with our Skoda Perla number 8. There is still some wetness on the back washes, but some of the painting, at least the floor, is already dry. So we're dry brushing some of the staircase, showing some attention, and even pulling from the shadow some of the lines to show the staircase. Okay. Hope you didn't miss it. I'm going a little bit fast, I know. Is this nervousness when you are having fun with the scene? But I already put, before some of the tablecloths, I put some darks underneath, and now the tables came to life, also some of the figures. So little by little, this is drying, and we are putting in some of the windows, some of the balconies, some of the details of this upper part, and so on. Maybe some wires as well, like contrasting against the sky, and so on. So please let me know if you are seeing this, the broadcast wall. Drop me some pluses because I'm a little bit aware of you not being able to see the broadcast wall. Everything good? Please let me know. Okay, I'm continuing with my small brush, number 8 of Skoda Perla, here and there, giving some touches of dry brushing technique. Give me some pluses if you're following well, please. Give me some pluses. Now I'm pouring a little bit of water on top. Okay, some street plants, dry brushing technique as well. Actually, we already done the main part, the painting. So light and shadow is already there. Okay. Okay, some plus is coming. So thank you for following. I don't know the delay between when I'm talking and you. Hope it's not that much. I'm using my credit card to scratch out some of the details. Now the wash on the left is a little bit drier, so I am able to scratch out some of the whites and giving it a little bit more of interesting different values. Okay, so when we have such a big wall as this, we cannot have a plain wall without anything. We need to have medium tones, dark tones in the windows, scratching out, effects, textures. So it's important to have variety when you paint. Of course, everything under the same wash. I can also use my nails, as you may know. Nails are quite nice. It's another tool that you can use. Of course, using too much texture, too much the credit card and so on, pouring can get to a limit that the wash will look too dirty. So we have to be careful that this doesn't happen, okay? Okay, now I'm taking a little bit of cobalt turquoise light straight from the tube. This cobalt turquoise light is the opaque color, this turquoise opaque color that you can see that I'm putting right away. And now I'm also putting some shadows underneath the balconies to make this 3D effect pop out. Again, some nail work, just invented that word maybe. Reinforcing lower parts and so on. And the scene is pretty much coming to a stage where we already see almost everything. So the most important thing here is to connect all the shadows. And now it's just time to give some details and contrast everything. Actually, I'm pretty happy about how this painting ended because I think it doesn't look like I don't know, a postcard. I think it's got strength, it's got power, the composition, the texture. So I really enjoyed painting it. Okay, we're using our hair dryer because of our limited. Actually, look better than drying it with a hair dryer. Why? Because sometimes when we use a hair dryer, colors tend to dry a little bit darker and muddy. But when it dries on its own, it looks a little bit more transparent and nicer because we leave the pigment and the water time to get down and into the paper, and it looks better. Okay, a little bit more of dry brushing technique for some of the balconies and so on. Final touches, final details. Figure sitting, standing. And now we already took titanium white or opaque white in Rembrandt, and we are reinforcing some of the tables, some of these beautiful white spots that are popping out. I don't know, heads of figures, things, people in the background. I really like the sense of backlighting scene that we have here because the warm colors on the first layer are really interacting well with these cool colors of the shadow. So this vibration between warm and cool is quite nice. Also using this opaque white a little bit to reinforce some of the windows. I can use also a little bit my fingers to don't make it too fussy. And we are reaching the final stages of our painting. Skoda Perla number 8. I'm taking bright yellow right now to put it on top. And so on. Maybe some dry brush stroke with on top of the main wall, small accents. Yeah, this is the jewelry part, as some watercolorists call it. But we should be careful not to put too much jewelry, because sometimes when we put too many details into the scene, the main washes, the main feeling of light and shadow, the main feeling disappears, and we all when we put too many fussy details. So a little bit of camion yellow as well on the warmer parts. I put straight from the tube. Remember, camion orange, straight from the tube. Accent to putting some accent on the warmer parts, but that's it. Not too much. We finished already. Now we're gonna show you the final painting. Okay. So that's the finished piece. Quite happy about it. Hope you enjoyed it. I'll see yours later. Thank you for being there. And if you have any comments, if you have any questions, please let me know. I'll be happy to help you. So this is the final work. Yeah, my camera is not as good as the one where I stream, but you can see it. You can see myself as well. So thank you for everything, and let me know any questions.